Hi, my name is Evan Williams, and I am a customer success leader and advisor with Growth Molecules. In honor of Black History Month, this four-part interview series, Black Voices in Customer Success, will highlight accomplished leaders and executives in customer success. My guests have decades of experience and valuable insights to share. If you're interested in learning more about how to elevate your career in customer success, what are the traits of a great CSM, and insights from tech veterans, this is the series for you. So I'm joined by Nate Williams, founder and managing partner at Benjamin Vance Search. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Evan. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me today.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I know you have a long background in customer success, and now you've transitioned into entrepreneurship and are focused on recruiting. Could you tell me about your background and what's really led you into where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I like every one of us, I started in customer success. I most of my jobs prior to having the title of CSM was customer facing, right? Account management, strategic account management, customer relations. I landed at Salesforce a very long time ago. I think the job title was the first that I had ever seen that said customer success manager, responsible for driving usage adoption and essentially expansion, if you will. Joined Salesforce. It was a life-changing experience, becoming technical through certifications, learning how to build relationships, learning how to expand. And then at that point, the hook was set, right? It was time for me to really continue to understand what customer success was and how far it could essentially take me. So after about 5 years in the job, I wanted more responsibility. I wanted some management leadership responsibility. So I started putting my name in the hat to different roles. I landed at a company called Yammer, where I was given the opportunity to lead. So I inherited about 3 CSMs in that role. And within a year and a half, I had 45 people on my team. So
Wow.
it was, trial by fire. It was lots of growth and expansion. And, as the business grows, you have to shift your strategies as to how it relates to customer success. So by chance, I just happened to, when I chose to turn left instead of right, it was the right decision for the business and the team. And we had some pretty good success. Right around that time, Microsoft came in and acquired the company. So now my team of 45 now morphed into a team of about 70. And for lack of a better word, ish got real, right? It got pretty real over at Microsoft. And then I just kept moving up from there, right? Understanding the nuances of customer success, scaling a team. We were considered the tip of the spear, if you will, because a lot of those customers at Microsoft were on-prem, and we wanted to move those customers to the cloud. And obviously the tool that we were using at the time allowed those customers to move into the cloud. So it was a great experience, but it then left me in a leadership position, lots of responsibility, lots of travel. And one thing people should be aware of if they desire to move into leadership, it may require some things of you that you are not necessarily comfortable in doing. For me, it was travel. I was traveling 3.5 weeks out of every month, and it wasn't really conducive to a quality of life that I wanted. But it was an amazing ride. After I went to Microsoft in that acquisition, was leading a team for about 2.5 years. The travel became a bit too much. I then started looking around for some different opportunities. I landed at a company called Xamarin, which was a mobile application development company. Smaller team, less travel. I literally was working at that company for about 8 months, because 8 months to the day that I started, Microsoft acquired that company. So now second acquisition by Microsoft, back at Microsoft. That wasn't the route that I wanted to go. I decided to take some time off and establish kind of what I was going to do next. And that's when I jumped into the realm of recruiting. The reason why I started going down a path of recruiting is because, as you can attest to this, I don't know how it is now or was back then, but every recruiter that I talked to fill a position for my team, I had to explain to them what customer success was, right? I had to really communicate to them the skills that I was looking for, the person, the background, and continuing to talk to them about what customer success was. So when I took that hiatus, I thought, this is a problem that is kind of running rampant within the industry. I want to solve the problem. And that problem was finding really good individuals that came from a customer success background and placing them in other customer success roles. So I jumped on the train of recruiting. Some call it the dark side, but it's been a fantastic journey. It's been a fantastic journey.
You've had such an incredible background, and hearing about how you've scaled at Yammer from 3 individual contributors all the way up to a team of 45. Can you tell me about what you did to help prepare yourself for that challenge?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's not much you can do to prepare for growth like that, right? You can just, the advice that I would give anybody is, you know how your business runs and you know how it expands, right? You always should have a formula as to when is a good time to hire, right? So my formula was, each of my CSMs had about 10 to 12 accounts. It's a real prehistoric way to think about it. But as we started to attain more new business, and we were responsible for obviously those enterprise accounts, that number obviously started to increase. And I never wanted my CSMs to have more than a certain number of accounts. So I always wanted to stay ahead of that curve. So I start hiring and hiring and hiring. It really goes to speak to the success that we were having as a sales organization and getting those new accounts. But you can't really prepare for it. I mean, one day you're having a team meeting and you have, 7 people on your team. The next minute you look up, you have 30. The next minute you look up, you're expanding into different regions of the country, and now your team is 45. So there's not really anything you can do to prepare for it. But what I can say is, as you were going through the process to scale up your team, it's important to really have a good, crisp outline of what you want that person to add to your team, like the value you want that person to add to your team, because 1 or 2 bad hires can set you back, 3 to 4 to 5 months. So it's important to scale the right way, scale smart, and hire the right people. But hence that's the plug for making sure you understand the role and responsibilities and finding the right recruiter that can get you what you need.
Yeah, and it's so important as a new leader to be able to recruit that talent, to be able to scale the team. As someone that's a new leader and they're unsure about what they should be looking for and best practices when it comes to scaling and interviewing and recruiting this new team, what guidance would you give to that person?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say know exactly what your team needs, right? So every leader is aware of the personalities that exist on their team. Every leader should be aware of the next areas of growth, right? Whether it be a region, whether it be a conversation for expansion, whether it be renewals, like there's areas of your business that you want to focus on for the next 6 months to a year. Maybe it's even a quarter, right? A quarter or two. If that person coming into your team by way of recruiting can access and/or solve some of those problems that you are now focused on, think about it that way. The other thing I would think about is make sure those personalities don't clash with your team, right? You never want to hire somebody that you like that essentially is going to rub your team the wrong way or other teams the wrong way, even though you may like that person. So what I would say to those leaders is as you are making a decision on who you should or should not hire, make sure your team is involved in that process. It's a mistake that I didn't think was so widespread. It's important to not only have your leads meet that person you're looking to hire, but somebody within the common team to also interview that person, just to get not necessarily sign off or buy-in, but just that they support your decision in moving forward with that hire.
Got it. Okay. And I feel that we hear a lot of the times that there's a lot of the traits that we look for in CSMs or future CS leaders. Do you have any thoughts on what are some of the I would say the underserved or under recruited or looked for skills?
Yeah, that's a good question as well. I would say a technical background is always helpful as you are thinking about a SaaS product. So if somebody comes from a technical background, even product, I think, is important, right? Somebody that has a product background, sometimes it hasn't necessarily been one that has had a lot of success in customer success, but the profiles that I've talked to that have a foundation of product or that have kind of worked their way through customer facing roles and now as in customer success have been, I mean, highlights, really, really stars, if you will, in the profiles of candidates that I'm looking for right now. The other thing I would say is anytime you have somebody that's eager to solve a problem, right? Anytime that person can give several examples of where potentially their department and or their company was facing a problem and they kind of went out of their way to solve that problem, I think that's always a good opportunity to learn more about that person's journey, to see potentially where they want to go, because those are the candidates that I've seen that continue to go on that process of solving problems at whatever level they're at in their career. They continue to do so.
Got it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What are some of the traits that you see that really enable good CSMs to become good leaders?
That's a great question. I would say the person that is not necessarily, that is team oriented. And when I say that, everybody kind of uses that phrase loosely, but willing to help out a teammate, willing to help out a peer, willing to solve a problem, knowledgeable about various departments within the business. So has a great relationship with sales, right? Is the person that's looked on to lead some of those calls, either pre-sales calls or post-sales calls. Understands the customer lifecycle model, right? Has a good relationship with support, potentially can solve a problem before it goes to support. I like somebody who has a bit of gravitas to them, right? That is comfortable in speaking in all arenas of the business. So if they are having a conversation with the CEO, they're comfortable. If they're having a conversation with a client, they're comfortable. If they're having a conversation with the new hire, they're very comfortable. So what I would say is make sure that you are comfortable speaking to all levels. And if you're not, right, if you've gotten some feedback that you potentially may struggle in this area, go outside of the company and get some training, right? And work on that, because as a customer success person, you're going to be speaking to lots of different people, lots of different leaders, and your ability to communicate is going to go a long way.
Yeah, that ability to speak to different levels and to communicate with many different personas and different people is so critical to being a successful, not only CSM, but also leader.
Agreed.
And, one of the things that I've heard, I think that really has helped me in my career is that you remember that, no matter who it is that you're speaking to or their level or, how accomplished they are, you are an expert in your product, right? You're speaking to them about something that you are an expert or that you know very well. So keeping that in mind, even if they are someone who, is significantly more senior than you are, to be, really comfortable selling the value of what it is that, you're presenting to them.
Exactly right. Well, they're essentially looking to you as that expert. So, wear the uniform. You're the expert. Consider yourself the expert. Speak as though you are the expert, which you are.
Now, if you have a CSM that feels like perhaps they're stuck in the role that they're in, they're not seeing the career progression that they would like to see, what's some advice that you'd give to someone that feels like they're ready to take the next step, but they're not quite sure how to get there?
Yeah, that's a common question. I speak to lots of CSMs, individual contributors, all the way up to leadership, and it's something that comes up all the time. The first thing I would do is, everybody has a job that they're doing right now, right? You're responsible for a certain number of accounts, a certain number of ARR. There's roles and responsibilities that you have in that job. Make sure, number one, that your LinkedIn profile is up to date, right? Make sure you are listing 4 or 5 bullet points of the things that you are currently accomplishing or responsible for accomplishing within that year or that quarter. I can't tell you how many times I talk to a candidate, I go to their LinkedIn profile and it's not up to date. So I have no idea what they're currently doing or what they have done. Make sure that profile is up to date, number one. Number two, as you are thinking about the business that you are currently in of a company, whatever their product or service is, if there's an area of that business that you are interested in, make sure you are going to said leader of that team and letting them know your interest, right? You want to learn more about it. you want to spend some more time with the engineering side, the product team, the sales team, the marketing team. Make your voice heard. And lastly, what I would say is think about yourself. I know they always ask this in interviews, but think about what you want to be doing in 2 to 3 years. What does that look like? Does it look like customer success? Does it look like customer success leadership? Does it look like you want to be a part of another team? But you have to be thinking about, long term, if you will, 2 to 3 years out, what essentially that looks like. Because you'd be surprised in my family, we always say a closed mouth does not get fed. Like, you got to open your mouth, right? You got to indicate to certain people what your desire is. And as they are now thinking about who they want to place in that role, your name is going to be top of mind to those either leaders or managers or hiring managers for that position. But again, make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date. Make sure you're getting to know other areas of the business that you might be interested in, and make sure you are letting those people know that you're interested in making a jump. And the other thing I would say is keep your eyes and ears open as to other opportunities. I'm not saying you should leave your current company, because I don't support poaching, but what I would say is that you should always know your worth and your value as it relates to the job that you're doing, because it's not the company's responsibility to essentially tell you where you fall on the comp structure, as if you are, average, are you underpaid, are you overpaid? That's not their responsibility. You should know based on your research kind of where you're at, and or asking a recruiter, honestly, kind of where you are from a pay perspective. But those are the things that I would say for somebody that feels like they're stuck and they're looking to make a move. There's lots of really good opportunities out there. You gotta find them, and you gotta know where to look.
So it's important to be strategic and forward thinking about what are your goals and envisioning yourself really in that next role that you're looking for, but also then not being afraid to raise your hand and to speak up and advocate for yourself.
Absolutely. Well, the thing too is that I would say is that I know I suffered from this early in my career, was that I wasn't really willing to raise my hand, right? Because you just kind of want to do your job, keep your head down, and just, do great work. But you gotta take some risk in your career, and it's okay to raise your hand. You're eager, you have high energy, there's lots of things that you want to accomplish. There's a big world out there that needs your help, right? And you are, like we talked about earlier, you are an expert in what you're doing. Share the wealth, right? There's lots of people that would not only appreciate your expertise, but pay you for your expertise as well.
Got it. Yeah. And you talked about the importance of making sure that your LinkedIn is up to date, right? So telling the world about all these things that you have to offer so that, recruiters like yourself can see them.
Yeah.
What are some of the major mistakes or missteps that you see on LinkedIn that folks are making?
Yeah, it's great. Great question. So not an accurate title, right? So are you really a customer success manager, or are you in support? Are you in strategic account management? Are you in sales? Just be very specific about what you're doing. There's lots of different roles as it relates to post-sales activities, right? Make sure if you are a senior customer success manager, put that as your title. If you're responsible for managing, 15 accounts at, $11 million ARR, put that on your LinkedIn profile. Some mistakes I see is that there's not really a clear-cut summary as to who you are as a candidate, right? Here's what you have been doing for the last 7 or 8 years. This is what you are really good in. Here's how you're trained. This is what you are passionate about. This is what course you see yourself on. There's a pretty distinct section in LinkedIn that gives you the ability to kind of write yourself an introduction as to who you are and, what your passions may be as it relates to work. The other thing I would say, make sure you put contact information down there that is accurate, right? You don't have to put your phone number down, because I don't want, essentially people calling you all the time, but make sure there's an up-to-date email address that's in your contact information. If you are not necessarily, I just saw this profile a couple of days ago. It's 2023. Somebody had listed they were still at their job in 2018, right? They had switched 2 jobs since then. Make sure that the timing of it is correct. I know it's an extra effort to update a LinkedIn profile, but you will be surprised if you don't pay for the service. You may not necessarily know how many people are looking at your LinkedIn profile, but lots of people are looking at your LinkedIn profile. You're coming up in searches by way of the company that you either worked at or are currently working at, but also based on your skill set and even the title of your current position, senior customer success manager position. Your name is coming up in searches. So why not make it as accurate as you can, and precise as to what you have done, what you're doing now, and obviously what you want to do in the future. It's going to go a very long way.
Yeah. I know a great piece of advice that I was given early on in my career was to keep a log or keep a note that has a list of all of your accomplishments.
Right.
It's so easy to forget. If you're not tracking those, it's so hard to remember 6 years ago, what was the net revenue or retention?
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right.
That type of thing.
And why not brag on yourself, right? Nobody else is really going to brag on you. You might as well brag on yourself. And it's hard. There are some people that are really good at it, and there's some people that are just not good at all. There's never a happy medium, right? So if you're not good at it, and it will feel uncomfortable the first couple of times that you do it, but make sure you're bragging on yourself, specifically in your LinkedIn profile.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that perspective and sharing some of your wisdom with us. I know you're a fellow Oakland native, so I got to ask you: are you an A's or a Giants fan?
Oh man, that's a tough question. I'm a Bay Area fan, right? I support them both. I'm not leaning one way or the other. It's just disheartening that most of the Oakland teams are leaving. That's the hard part.
Yeah, it's sad to see. All right. Well, thanks, Nate. I really appreciate your time. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Absolutely. You too. Hey, thanks so much, Evan. I appreciate it.